Hi, I'm Ron, and this is my damn show. Let's get into it.
Favor of deporting everybody?
When you look at some of these interactions between ICE agents and the public, frankly, it's not entirely surprising that that's what's happening as they try to rush these people through the process of getting certified to be on the streets.
Okay, well, in all honesty, I'm athletically allergic. Could not pass the presidential exam when I was in school, could not do a pull-up for a nanosecond. That being said, look, I think this lack of not only the athletic aspect, but also the civics aspect is showing in the interactions we are seeing. There have been at least 170 U.S. citizens that have been detained by ICE. We have seen people get scooped up because they're black in Chicago, U.S. citizen blacks, put into U-Haul trucks, in the back of U-Haul trucks. We have seen teenagers pinned to the ground. We know that there have been more deaths in ICE custody in the last few months than there were in the last 4 years. So, I would hope that even folks who are in favor of deporting everybody, I would hope that there would be some agreement that there needs to be rights, that there needs to be a process, that people need to be allowed to show ID, that they can't just be scooped up in that way and have their rights violated. It's just inhumane what we are seeing in the streets of America.
Or at least that the standards shouldn't be lowered just to meet a quota.
Okay, I just have to respond to this. If you are housing or living with somebody in MS-13 or a gang member, it is very possible that you could get swept up in that. That is just a reality.
Listen, the vast majority of the people who have been detained do not have criminal records. 75%.
Well, if you're living with a gang member, you gotta know that's a possibility.
That's the people that were scooped up in this residential building in the middle of the night. You're just making things up. You're making things up. Most of the people that have been detained do not have any criminal records or ties to gangs.
Look, I'm sure you can find an example or two of this, but we also know the situations for a lot of these 170 Americans. And some of them were just happened to be in the same location as other people who might have been targeted by ICE and were still scooped up.
The teenage black boy I was referring to was in a CVS.
To Anna Navarro's point, that apartment building that they raided a couple of weeks ago that housed, frankly, mostly Americans, they only identified 2 alleged Tren de Aragua members. The rest of the people who were arrested, including American citizens, they're not gang members. So that's also happening.
Okay.
But I was asking you about the standards, because the issue at hand here is that the standards are not being met, and B, in some cases, are being slightly lowered to allow more people to get through this process because they have to meet a quota. And when you're talking about law enforcement, is that really what we should be doing?
No, absolutely not. And unfortunately, this is not really an ICE problem. This is a problem across the board. I think as many as 80% of police officers are overweight, and so we've seen standards just decrease across the board. Now, my understanding is that they aren't decreasing the standards. They're just saying that a lot of people are failing, and I think that's okay, right? They have a lot of people who are interested in joining. Not all of them are going to meet the criteria, and that's the reality.
A lot of people are joining because a lot of people need jobs. A lot of people are failing because we don't teach civic in schools, and that's a problem. And
they're offering $50,000 bonuses.
A lot of people are taking the job because there's student loan forgiveness. And I hope they don't lower the standard, because the last I checked, it was the DEI candidates that needed the standard lowered. But now it seems like the people who want to work for ICE might get their standards. Let's just see how this all plays out.
That's not what's happening. They're failing. The system is working. They have fitness standards. They have standards for civics. If you fail the standards, you don't get in. So the story is that you have a system in place designed to weed people out who shouldn't be in, and it's working. That's a good thing.
I will say this. So here's what we know, at least for now. In February, the requirements were this: 32 sit-ups in a minute or less, 22 push-ups in a minute or less, 220-yard sprint, 1.5 mile run. Now, the standard is 15 push-ups as opposed to 22. So it's still 32 sit-ups, 1.5 miles in slightly less time than before. So there's been a slight adjustment. Who knows why? You need to do 7 fewer push-ups than before, but
So the standards were lowered.
I'm going to cut in right here real quick. I'll get you back to the video. Obviously, anyone who's seen these videos, some of these horrible stops, know these people are either poorly trained, untrained, or just don't give a crap. They don't know the law, or they don't care what the law is. Especially, I mean, even when there's video, especially when there's not video, who knows what they're doing? And they will pick up anyone. I'm going to get into due process at the end of this. And why it's incredible to me. People don't understand why everyone has to have due process. But, yeah, the standards are obviously lower. And they've been lowered. It's obvious in the videos that we've been seeing all over the internet and everywhere and on the news. These people are out of shape and just embarrassing. And slightly, if not overwhelmingly, evil in some of the things they're doing. Let's get back into it.
You still have to meet an athletic standard, and you still have to meet a
So
civic
they lowered the
standard.
standard.
But standards still declining.
I also
Standards
think,
still
I mean,
declining.
to
But it's
me,
not just-
also the civics part is huge, because knowing
Right.
people's rights in this country is part of what you need to know if you're going to be violating them potentially as a law enforcement officer, or at least you have the power to do that.
But there was another claim tucked into that report, which is the people themselves are misrepresenting themselves. Say they're lying. See, that's a decline of standards too. It's a matter of character. It's a matter of soul craft. So it's not just you got a decline of standards across the board. And too often you want to scapegoat the most vulnerable. It must be the black folk and brown folk responsible for the decline of standards. No, get off the crack pipe. That's not true at all. What's really true is the decline of standards across the board, and people acting as if they're so athletically on the cutting edge, and when it's time to take the test, they can't pass
And
it.
if you lie on your
today-
application, perhaps you lie on the job.
Well, just
And
today
there's a
there was an
lot
ICE
you-
police officer whose weapon discharged and injured a U.S. Marshal and the suspect because they were using the service weapon to bang on the window of a suspect. I mean, I don't know. I mean, these are the types of things that just seem like, is there proper training happening here when it comes to ICE?
There's not. We've all seen it. And there should be.
You definitively state that they're not being properly trained. Do you know that?
They're shooting dogs. They're shooting dogs in people's that have been locked in people's bathrooms. They're abandoning small children alone in
False.
cars while they. No, it's not false. Look it up. Don't just say false. I actually.
Abandoning small children. They
Yes,
turned the children over to HHS.
There were actually
custody.
small children abandoned in a highway in a car in
Vague
Cicero,
anecdotes.
Illinois.
And you make these sweeping
how much
statements
more
that they're not
specific
training.
would you like me
They're
to
not
get
training ICE.
with,
Of course
with
they go through
examples of
training.
what is happening?
Of course they're training them.
Well, they're training them, then they're not learning this stuff. They're definitely violating human rights, Scott.
Well, I disagree with you.
Okay, well.
Well, look, Scott, she had a specific example. It sounds like you were unfamiliar with it.
I'm not aware of her example. Here's what I know.
Okay, so
under
you don't
Joe
know
Biden,
whether-
under Joe Biden, they didn't enforce federal immigration law. Now we do. We're having hundreds of thousands of interactions.
my point is that you
things
just
will
said,
happen, but she said they are not
I know,
training
but you-
them.
but
She
no,
said
but
they're not
she-
training.
she-
Do you
No,
think
no,
that
no,
do
she
you
said
think that
she was
trained
saying-
do you think that trained
She was saying a
ICE
specific
agents
example,
would,
and you said it
her
was
first
false.
statement was,
Don't.
she said,
you just
quote, they're not
acknowledged
training
that.
them.
You just
We all
acknowledged that
see
you
it.
don't know what she was
do you
referring
think
to.
I don't. I don't know
that
what she's talking
scooping
about.
up U.S. citizens without giving
I
them?
disagree with the generalization. They're scooping up U.S.
There's
citizens.
170 that have been
Well, there's
scooped
over
up.
500,000 illegal aliens that have been
There's
deported.
little children that have been
1.6
scooped
million
up
have
that are U.S.
self-deported.
citizens.
All right, look.
There is
I know, you don't want the law
There
enforced.
is
I get it.
video
You
of
don't have to
black
yell at me.
kids.
You don't want the law
All right,
enforced.
You're the
I
one
understand.
yelling.
Listen, look, it is true.
Guess what?
That
On
United
this
States
table, black and
citizens
white people can
have
yell.
been detained by ICE without.
Detained and released.
Yeah,
Released.
But
Released.
whether you're detained
After
and released
hours or
after
days of
hours or
being
days,
held?
your rights may still be violated, and that's still an issue that people have a
Can I
right to
just-
be concerned
Can I
about.
just throw a curveball? The reason why they're often detained though is also because of the color of their skin.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's, again, a sweeping blanket general. Do you know of a
No, we got data
specific
for that.
instance
No,
where
no, we
someone,
got
I mean,
data for that.
honestly,
Question, do
They
you
got
know
data
a
for that.
specific
They got
instance
data
of
for
what?
that.
The answer
I mean,
is
you're saying they're
hold on
not
a
treated.
second.
You're saying they're racist.
The
I mean, these are
answer-
blanket
I didn't say that.
statements.
That was a blanket
That's
statement.
The
wild.
answer is yes, we do know of specific
blanket
instances
statement.
in which people, American citizens,
Yep.
have been arrested because they happen to be in a particular place and look a certain way. That has actually happened. They're documented. So this is
And
not
released.
guesswork that we're doing here. Yeah, but they're still detained. They're still arrested without their rights being given to them. That is still happening.
Look, anyone being honest with themselves, not living under a bridge, or just not an evil, hateful Republican, or just sticking their head straight up their ass and pretending like all this horrible stuff isn't happening. And unfortunately, we have a lot of people just sticking their head straight up their ass and pretending none of this is happening. All the while, your rights are being taken away from you, day by day. Surely, but slowly. I won't even say slowly now, but it's definitely surely. And for the Trump apologists, the girl Lydia in the red, and Scott, they were shamelessly back anything that this administration puts out. Anything, any horrible thing. He even had to admit right there, he wasn't aware of the video. Or he probably just lied. He was aware of it and just denied it. It's what they do. They're pretending none of this is happening. 170. That's probably a low figure too. That's not the actual numbers that we have. Who knows how many real Americans, legal Americans, have been picked up. These are the numbers that we actually have, the official ones. And you can't trust anything coming out of this so-called government. They're a joke. To the due process. The reason you need due process, you dumbasses who think it's okay for illegals or non-documented people or people who are immigrants to be picked up and not given in due process. I don't know how this is not common sense to you, but you stupidly support Donald Trump, so I guess you really don't have much common sense. And you vote to advocate against your own best interests, so I doubt your common sense is... Anyway, you don't have much common sense, in other words. So, you need due process because they can pick you up, dummy. If they don't care about checking if you're an American citizen, they just look at you and you're brown, and they're just picking you up. And we've seen videos where they totally disregard, people who speak in clear, normal English with an American accent. And they toss them in the back of the van. They can pick you up without due process, take you anywhere, and ship you off. Do you understand that? That's why you need due process. If people are just going around picking up people not caring if they're American, they don't care. But you don't understand, they're not going to ask you, are you American? They see that, hey, he's brown. And let's go pick him up. We don't like what he said. So she said. Just toss him in the van. This is why you need due process. Because they're not asking if you're American. Most of the time, they're not asking for any documents. They're just tossing you. This is why you need due process. And you have to go through the whole process, the whole formal process, through the courts, everything. Not just be detained and shipped off to some third world country. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. That's all I got. Thanks for watching.